to another chapter of Small Biz Diaries. I'm Esperanza, your host. I'm here to introduce to you Nataly Quintero, a talented mindfulness artist based in New Jersey. Nataly's wellness journey began in 2017 during an extremely difficult time in her life when she was faced with intense anxiety. She turned to wellness practices like yoga, meditation, creative journaling, and sound baths as tools for healing and transformation. These practices gradually changed her life, and now she shares their power with others through curated, intentional experiences. In this episode, Chapter 16, Navigating Anxiety and Finding Purpose, we explored how Nataly's anxiety pushed her to step outside her comfort zone and try new things to heal. She opens up about her personal journey, the struggles of managing anxiety, and how these wellness modalities became her anchors for transformation. Whether you're a stressed small business owner, someone who's been hesitant to try wellness practices, or simply looking for ways to reconnect with yourself through these ups and downs of entrepreneurship, this conversation is full of valuable insights just for you. Let's get started. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Small Biz Diaries. As I mentioned, we have a wonderful guest here today. We have Nataly. She is a mindfulness artist based out of New Jersey. I can't wait to have her dive into her journey as a small business owner, entrepreneurial spirit. We're talking about navigating anxiety and finding purpose and how it has happened for Nataly through her wellness journey. So I'm excited to have you here, Nataly. Welcome to Small Biz Diaries.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Esperanza. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah,
And hi, everyone.
yeah. Um, I've been looking forward to this episode, just because we have lots to talk about within your own journey, but also you have an amazing event coming up next year, that I think everybody should consider and just
Yeah,
have have at the top of their mind as they're planning out 2025. So,
yeah.
but before we kind of dive into that, I'd love for you to walk us through how navigating anxiety and finding your purpose has really shaped like Nataly and back where, you had a corporate job and or you were navigating trying to figure out if you wanted to start. How did that all happen for you? Like walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, I love the question. So I guess for me, um, it was back in 2017. I was going through a really bad breakup with someone that was really toxic and an alcoholic. And at the same time, my parents were actually going through a separation and divorce after 30 years of marriage. And I had always before that thought that anxiety was normal, that it was something that people woke up to. During that time, it got worse. So, like, I would wake up and my chest was like literally in massive amounts of pain. My head was hurting, just all these small things that at that point I was like, this, I don't think this is normal. And so I mentioned it to a friend and she said, Nataly, I don't think that's normal. I think you should she jokingly said, you should do yoga and meditate. And I was like, well, let me look into it, right? So I started by going into this yoga studio. They had a deal. It was like $35 for unlimited classes for the month. I'd never really done yoga. I had done it maybe one or two times. And I don't know why I thought it was a good idea to do hot yoga as a beginner.
That's one.
But I did it, and I think it was one of those things that really changed my life. I had never known what it's like to really fully be present because my anxiety was always, in the future or worried. And it was like, wow, this is the first time that I feel every time I'm in that class for 1 hour, even though I was struggling because I didn't know what I was doing, I felt really present and I was sweating it out and I felt like my body needed movement. I've always been a person that journals, so that was always a part of my daily routine, but it almost became stagnant. And so I was looking for other things to really tie it together. And then I started to look up meditation. After a month of yoga, I was like, okay, I feel really good. Now, how can I stimulate my mind? And when I tell you guys, I hated it. I'm not gonna lie. I always tell people, I'm like, I did not like meditating because one, I didn't know what I was doing. And two, I guess the way that it was marketed in social or in YouTube, it's like you had to just like sit still and quiet the mind. And then I realized like that's not real. Like that's just like not a real thing for people that are just starting. And it's really why I became really passionate after maybe a year and a half of my own practice to really teach people to dive into these wellness modalities with curiosity rather than fear. Because we're always afraid to kind of dive into meditation or anything new in the wellness space because there's a certain picture that's painted for us about it. And for me, for example, meditation can be walking in the park by yourself with nothing on, no headphones, no nothing, right? Or it could be really sitting down. But when you sit down, maybe you need to use a wall, for support. Maybe you want to lie down because that's what your body's asking for. Maybe you want to put your legs up on a wall because you need circulation, right, around the body while also meditating. And I felt like that wasn't really something that people or, even other wellness spaces were not really advocating for that. It was
Mhm.
more like this close your eyes, put your hands on your lap, sit a certain way. And of course, you get there. And of course, like I've gotten to a point where I can sit for 30, 45 minutes, but it took me years to get
Yeah.
there. And so I wanted to really start providing these community experiences, because I love calling them experiences rather than events, where you can really come in and be curious about the practice and not feel overwhelmed by it, right? Like even when I host events now, that's kind of like how I open up. I'm like, lie down, listen to your body, because what one person may need may not be what the other person needs, right? Maybe you want to sit up with no support because you're challenging yourself a little bit, right? Whereas like another person's like, absolutely not. I just started meditating like 2 days ago. I need to lie down, right? So we're not the same. It was not disappointing. It was hurtful to see how people were not approaching meditation or any of these modalities because they were afraid, because no one was guiding them in the right direction. And so I wanted to be that model because when I first started, I hated it. And like I didn't know what to do. And I didn't know who could teach me these things. Because even when I did go to meditation spaces, it was the same thing. And I started I'm like, reading books and I'm like, "Oh, maybe I could try meditating this way. Maybe coloring is my way of meditating, right? Like not just closing it, which I don't want to take away from the importance of it because it is very important, but I think the build up to it is just as important and not allowing yourself to have it look a certain way because society is telling you to. You don't have to start one way. You could start your way and build up to the 45 minutes with no support, right? Which is something, but even me, I've been meditating forever and I still like sometimes need support. Sometimes like, you know what? I'm tired. I want to lay down. Like
Yeah.
I'm still an advocate for listening to myself. And so that's like really where the journey started and why I decided that it was important for me to start these community events.
Yeah, one of the things that you mentioned during our initial writers call, which for everybody for context, that's just when I get to connect with our podcast guests beforehand, just to dive deeper, connect on like at one-on-one level and unpack their story to see what we can uncover as a potential topic for our episodes. And one of the things that Nataly said was instead of safe space, you like to call them brave spaces because it
Yeah.
takes a lot for someone to be brave and bold and put themselves out there when navigating tough situations or anxiety or trying to figure out what's best for them. And I have been resonating with that ever since our calls. I wanted to make sure to
Yeah.
bring it up because as you were talking, it reminded me that, you had to take that brave step to step
Mhm.
outside your comfort zone and be like, I've never done yoga before. I don't know anything
Yeah.
about it. Never meditated before. I don't know anything about it, but I'm just going to stay open and curious and say, I'm going to do this and then see what I can receive from it. And that's
Yeah.
exactly what you did, which kind of like did a domino effect or led you to continuing to explore these other
Yeah.
opportunities within wellness.
Yeah, and I love that you brought that up because it is really important for people to know that it's just being brave and taking that small step, right? Like people think that when they start meditating, they have to do it 7 days a week, and that's just not realistic. It's just not realistic. Being brave enough to say that 7 days is too much for me, it's a brave thing to do because most people want to start even as simple as going to the gym. And I love using this example because most people January 1st want to go to the gym, 35 days straight. Like, this is just not real. It's not real when you have not allowed your body to work out 6 months before. So how can you think January 1st your body's gonna wake up and be like, yes, we're gonna do 7 days a week? No, it's a muscle that you build just like any wellness practice as well. Like creating that brave space for yourself that, you know what, I'm just gonna show up twice a week because that's what my body can do. And I want to allow my brain, my mind, my body and my spirit to approach it in a kind way, right? It's just not real for you to say January 1st, I'm gonna go gym 7 days a week and I'm gonna meditate 5 days a week when you've never meditated before, or when maybe you have meditated, but you haven't in months. And that's something that I was actually struggling with in Spain,
Mm,
when I was traveling, maintaining these rituals. And I was like, I had to then step back and say, okay, I am always advocating for brave
yeah.
spaces. For me, a brave space right now is just being able to meditate twice a week, right? I couldn't do more. And I had to understand where I was. And so, understanding where you are, allowing yourself the small steps, and just being brave about maybe the 1 time a week, the 2 times a week goes a really long way. And it's also something I really advocate during my experiences as well. Just just you being here makes you brave,
Hmm.
right? And I think that people almost dismiss it just because it's like, oh, I'm just going to an event, but not really. It's you getting out of your comfort. It's you being in a space where you don't know what's going to happen. It's a space of the unknown, really. You know that you're going to go there, but you don't know what's going to happen. And so that ripple effect of like that 1 time of bravery, showing up for yourself 1 time a week, twice a week, it then turns into, wow, this makes me feel really good. I'm gonna try it 3 times a week after maybe a month and a half of doing 1 or 2 times a week, which is something that I did. Like, this is how I started to build because when I first started, I wanted to do the 7 times. I'm like, oh, if I'm not doing like, and then it's why I hated it because I
Yeah.
felt like it was an obligation rather than a moment of rest and peace for myself. And then when I started to see it that way is when I was like, okay, 2 times a week, I showed up 2 times a week. Wow, that's really good. I'm really happy for myself. Like, I gave myself that moment of like peace. So I love that you mentioned the brave spaces because that's really what I can promise people. Just by you showing up to one of my events, you're already in that brave space. You're already going out of your comfort zone if you've just began, or even if you're resetting, or even if you're continuing your practice, that's still a brave thing that you're doing for yourself.
Yeah, no, I agree 1000%. And if I were to go, like, if you were to go back to Natalie doing your first event, like, walk us through what was going through your mind. Because obviously, this came from, you having a great experience within your own
Mhm.
wellness journey and stepping into that outside your comfort zone and navigating your own anxiety, in turn, seeing how this wellness journey was helping you. But walk us through like how that happened with actually creating a tangible event, right? Or trying to put together an event.
Ooh, well, let me tell you, I was nervous. I
Yeah.
was sweating because all the imposter syndrome came in. Like, who do you think you are? Like, why are you holding space for people? Can you even really like facilitate something like this? And honestly, one of the first events that I hosted was in collaboration with someone. So that kind of it didn't ease it completely because you're still nervous because your voice is being heard because you are really leading these people into a space, but it alleviated, like, I had someone with me. Like, I was like, this person is not their first rodeo, and so it created like, even though I was feeling a lot of imposter syndrome, it created this confidence. Like, I was like, you know what, I have this person that believed in me, that thinks that I can hold this space. She chose me and she knew that it was like one of my first things, one of my first events. And she said, your voice needs to be heard because you love to help people and it's your superpower. And I was like, ah, I didn't even see helping people as a superpower. Like, I just felt like it was like I had to do it, right?
Mm.
Like, it was like, oh, it was my calling in society, right? But she was like, no, that's actually your superpower because not a lot of people want to help others. You can help yourself and just like call it a day or help the people around you. You want to expand this. And so walking through that first experience, I was like, I'm gonna mess this up. I'm gonna mess this up. I'm gonna mess this up. And again, I'm thankful for that person that brought me in because I realized then that people give me a boost of energy. Like,
Mm.
I am not the type of person that I need to revert to get energy. I get energy from people. And so that in that moment, I was like, oh yeah, this is my calling. For sure, this is my calling. Like, I love helping people. And just honestly, it was the way that people left. And I wasn't that experienced in hosting events. Actually, I had no experience in hosting events. But again, I did the brave thing, right? We go back to the bravery. Like, I just took the one step to create this dream life for myself or this dream position. When I tell you, I mean, even events after that, some of them did not fill up. Sometimes it hurt the ego. Like, but then there was ones that people would come in and it was just like, oh my God, this is why I'm doing it, despite like all the other things that are happening. But I was very, very thankful for the one because just people left really full.
Yeah.
People left really in community. Like, I'm a connector of people. I love connecting people. And so that people left with friendships. You know, when I first started my journey and I started changing, I went from being the party girl and the drinker to like the wellnessy girl to not drinking to not, because I till this day I will have my drinks, but I'm not a drinker. And it was very strange for the people around me. So I started losing friendships and I started losing people. And that's why for me it was also important to host these events for people that might be in the same space and trying to change, but they don't know necessarily who to reach out to or where to go. And so I think that this first event was very fulfilling. And because I'm in production as well,
Yeah.
it was something really beautiful to see in the wellness space, like take my quote unquote 9 to 5 and transition into something that I really am passionate about. And even the little details was fun, you know? So I really much, I enjoyed it so much. But when I tell you guys, I was sweating. Was like, I was sweating. And if people tell you that it's their first event and they're not sweating, they're not nervous, it's a complete lie. Like,
Yeah.
you just have to take the step. You
Mhm.
have to take the step.
I think there's so many times now that we're on autopilot, right? Like we have our routine or we have the things that we're used to doing in our comfort zone. And I feel like nothing, there's a quote out there that says nothing great, amazing happens in your comfort zone. It happens outside your comfort zone. And I truly believe that because it's almost giving you a different perspective. It's challenging your everyday and it's allowing you to receive other energies, other things, other perspectives, so many different components that you might not be receiving on your everyday basis routine that you're just so used to. Even right now, being here in Tulum, and I realized how much in my comfort zone I was in Tampa and doing small things that I haven't done in a while, like my mode of transport's a bike. I'm observing things
Yeah.
that I didn't observe before. I'm grateful for things that I had before that I don't have now. Just helps you just shift your perspective. And as we can see, both with you and just with so many others, it allows for opportunities to find a purpose or find something that sparks that joy or sparks that um, happiness or something that you just want to do multiple times and eventually ends up becoming something that you love,
Yeah.
which is I think part of, if not most of what happened with you, is just you stepped outside that comfort zone and
Mhm.
continue to practice it and continue to, step by step do what you wanted to do or form what you want, the dream position that you wanted to form. and
Mhm.
and here you are now hosting your retreat in Portugal
Yeah,
next.
I'm like so excited. It's really an exciting project, this retreat in Portugal, because it's really going to be focused on Latinas, right? On our stories. And, you know, I tell people a lot of the retreats that I go to, you just go to a retreat center and you're just there and it's all retreat. And I love it. It's beautiful. Of course, it's part of the experience. But for me, because I'm a traveler, I always feel like I go to the retreat and then I have to extend my stay another like whatever, 5 days or whatever it is to really get to know the culture or to get to know the space where that I'm in. So for me, it was really important to combine the two, where we're gonna really be practicing telling our stories, doing a lot of really beautiful wellness modalities together and in community, but also enjoy where we are, right? Because that's a part of it. I think that maybe a lot of retreats may miss that, and I'm not saying all, but it's hard for me to find spaces where I can do both, especially as an adventurer at heart where I
Yeah.
need to do both. So we have like really, 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 really beautiful experiences planned out. A lot of is going to be a lot of art. There's even going to be a pole dancing class so that we can really tap into our sensualities, because I think that's also really important. There's going to be farm to table experiences, sunset cruise experience. There's going to be just, time to just digest everything that's happening. We have a beautiful villa that we got for this experience. You can have a pool, and it's going to be really community based, telling our stories, right? I feel like is a lot that we as women of color, traumas that we need to navigate through. So me having all these years of experience in the wellness space now, I am finally just really ready. I've hosted one retreat before. This was years ago in Philly, and it was wonderful. It was beautiful. And now I am ready after all these like 5 years of real experience in this space. I'm ready to really do it big in Portugal next year. So I'm excited, and I hope to see some people there. I hope to see you there. I hope to see a couple people there. Yeah, yeah, you
Yeah.
guys should come. Listen, I'm working on other ones as well. There's going to be, this one is very Latina focused, but I am going to expand and make it retreats for beautiful women of color, because I do think that we need to share our stories. And we're actually going to do one in Cartagena, Colombia, because I just feel like there's a lot of ancient wisdom there, and there's a lot of Afro Latinas that are there, a lot of things that we need to speak about. So that is also coming up for some people that maybe can't go all the way to Europe, but can make their way to Colombia.
Yeah.
It's going to be this April 2025. We'll be announcing it this month of October. So I'm really excited. But it's going to be a really special and beautiful space to be in. So I mean, like, I hope you can make to one of them. Yeah.
I can totally see how that would like unravel very well.
Yeah.
If you were to tell Natalie, the version that, was just doing her first yoga class to where you are now, like that you're about to do your first retreat in Portugal, like what do you think
I'm
you
like,
would
ah!
say? Yeah.
That's a really good question, because sometimes we don't see the progress that we make.
Hmm.
Sometimes we're just so in it that we're like, oh, we're not doing that much. Like, we got to do more. We got to do more. And of course, and I think it also comes from like our generation of parents where all they did was work. And so like their value was only given through work. And so like having to step away, I asked myself the other day, who am I without all these labels? Who am I without my work? Who am I without like being the daughter, like the sister? Like, who am I? Right. And I think what I would say is like, I'm so proud of you. Like, girl, you are doing it. Like, this is crazy. In a million years, I thought I was going to host, I dreamt of it. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. I was like, oh, I dream of doing like retreats all over the world. And, it would be called my self-care world tour. That's literally what I had it on my vision board. It was
Love
crazy. I had
it.
it on my
Yeah.
vision board. And now it's happening. Now it's like, we're going to go to Colombia, we're going to go to Portugal, and then we have a trip to Oaxaca planned that
Oh,
will be pending. So, like, just all these, I would just say I'm so proud of her. Like,
yeah.
I'm so proud of you for taking that one brave step that changed
Hmm.
my life. Because
Yeah.
had I not taken that one step and gotten out of my comfort zone, and not just once, but repeatedly, because this is also a muscle that people have to understand that they have to get over. Repeatedly getting out of your comfort zone is uncomfortable, of course, but it really teaches you that that's where all of the growth is. That is where all your growth is. And so I'm glad, and I would say I'm so proud of you for continuously getting out of your comfort zone
Oh,
and showing up.
no, thank you for sharing that. I can't wait for you to watch this a couple of years from now and see how much more your self-care world
Yeah.
tour expanded. I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing. And
Yeah.
obviously, a lot has happened between now and then. So we've talked about this before, but Small Biz Diaries is all about unpacking the struggles, the hurdles that people go through as entrepreneurs, small business owners. So, what is something that you're consistently trying to challenge right now and where you're at, or anxieties that still surface, things that you want to talk about that are happening right now to Natalie today?
Yeah, it's so funny. This is a great question because it just keeps coming up. I'm not really great. I mean, I'm good with storytelling, but really like pushing myself to sell things, like sounding too salesy. Like,
Yeah.
like buy my thing. Like I struggle with that because I don't want to be a pushy person when it comes to like selling my things. And I think that's something that I've consistently struggled with. Aside from all the admin stuff that people don't tell you that come with that, like the finances and the paying, like every month you have to bring income, and how are you bringing income, and clarifying your, like, just all these little things aside from administrative. Then it comes to like what people know as marketing. Oh my gosh, I struggle with that. I'm good with storytelling. Like I feel like in my on my Instagram, and I tell people a certain story, and people kind of, I guess, know me as a certain aesthetic, and people tell me, yeah, I go to your page and I feel so like calm, and I'm like, oh, that's great, right? Like that's what I'm trying to do. But as far as like, oh my God, selling, I'm still trying to find a happy medium where it's like not too salesy, but I'm also very inviting. Like I'm also inviting you to an experience, not just for you to buy a ticket. You know, I want you to come to this experience so that you can step into that brave space, you know, not just like, not to just buy another wellness experience, right? So I think that's where I really struggle. Just, girl, the salesy thing, I'm like, ugh,
Yeah, because you know you want to, talk about it or have people get excited about it,
yes,
but have this like perspective that sales or like specific marketing has to be done a certain way. And I think that
yes,
sometimes we have to like reframe our perspective a little bit and find something that works for you. Because if someone's doing it in like the, comment trip or comment Portugal, and you think that that's the exact same way you should do it, it might not be resonating with your audience. Like there's different ways that you can connect with people, but it's difficult to find it and just to like feel overwhelmed with
yeah.
the components that you mentioned.
Yeah, honestly, that's one of the things that brings me the most anxiety. Like I want people to come to my experiences because you're going to meet a friend, because you're going to connect more deeply to yourself, because my experiences are a little different. I really tap into your senses. Like it's not just another wellness experience. It's really a place where, I will maybe guide you into a meditation with a flower. I did that the other day and people were just like, they're different. And so I struggle with like being pushy and just too salesy and too in your face. I don't want to be in your face. I just want you to know that this experience is going to be wonderful. It's going to be beautiful. You're going to be really super dope women that you can resonate with. So it's just I struggle with that. I'm trying to find a happy medium. I'm trying.
Yeah, that's all we can do is just like figure out a way that like something that resonates with you so that you can share that experience and connect with others. It's that
Yeah.
connection piece that I think is the most important, just as you would in like your experience. But no, I mean, thank you for sharing. I'm sure many people will resonate that like that's a struggle, because obviously you want people to attend your event or you want people to get your service or see the value in this.
Yeah.
Still part of the process to like, have to talk about it and all that jazz.
Yeah, yeah. And that's just really believing in your own hype too.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I go into these holes of imposter syndrome. I'm like, oh, like again. And then I have to yank myself out of it. Of course, through modalities or meditation or like therapy, and just kind of like yank myself out of it. But then I'm like, oh, reset. Right. And then I have to start not all over again, but then just kind of like get back into the swing of things, because I'm like, who's going to want to come to my event? And I'm like, no, actually, I would come to my event. Like, I would, so just like really believing your own hype and believing in what you're doing for people. I think that's really huge. And I think that even though sometimes I revert, go back to, no, I believe in what I'm doing, and I believe that I'm doing good for people. And I think that's what keeps me going. And so finding the why is really important. I know people say the why, like, but really, why are you doing what you're doing? Like, why? Sit down with yourself. And that took me a bit. Like, I had to sit down with myself and say, why am I doing this? Of course, community and like all these beautiful things, but what was the deep rooted why and why I was doing this? And that really helped clarify and push me to continue doing the work. Like,
Yeah.
just really figuring out, why am I hosting these retreats? Why? Because I feel like women of color, Latinas, Black women, Indigenous women, we deserve voices, and we really can help each other heal.
Mm-hmm.
Like we can help each other, give each other voices, and so that's my why. right? I figured out this is why I want to host retreats because I think it's a space of adventure, but also of healing.
Yeah, and okay. And it continues to like, you know, make sure that you're stepping into that brave space and um, making sure that you're continuing to like push those boundaries within yourself of what you're capable of, what you're you can step into that power that you have, and it'll keep you going on the days that are really tough because there will be many of those days that whether it's the admin work or taxes or something that ends up surfacing that you're like, is this worth it? Like what,
Mm-hmm.
because that
Yeah,
happens quite often, which is something I knew going into being a small business owner, whether it was through my art or anywhere else. It's just knowing that the tough days sometimes are there are more tough days than good days, and
yeah,
what are you doing to help you on those tough days? Whether it's a
yeah.
support system, whether it's hyping yourself up, whether it's taking care of yourself outside of what you're doing. There's so many different ways, but you got to find something that works for you.
Yeah, you saying that there are more tough days than people, think there
Mhm.
are. Because there's a lot of, in this journey, there are a lot of new things. There are like, even the taxes thing that you were talking about. Yeah, we do our taxes every year, but typically people are working a 9 to 5 and taking their taxes to their tax person and then that's it, which doesn't really work that way. Like, if you're providing a service, you need to be able to take out, X amount of tax so that it's in another account so that you, by the end of the year, when you are paying these taxes quarterly or whenever it is, like
Yeah.
you have the money in your account and it's not like you have all this money.
Yep.
Being able to have money and say, okay, this is what I need. I need $5,000 a month minimum, let's say, to keep my business afloat. And that means your Zoom, right? Like your, I don't know, your Canva, your, maybe you're paying somebody, whatever it is that you need, like making sure that you know this. And when I tell you at first, I was like, what is happening? I just didn't know. I didn't
Same.
know. It really puts you in a place where you're like out of your comfort zone again, but you're learning, right? You're learning. You have to watch videos on it because you just do. You got to learn. You got to go maybe ask somebody for questions.
Yeah.
If an attorney gives you, I don't know, 30 minutes of free session, make sure you use that and ask all the fucking questions. Ask all the questions that you can so that you learn. Hire the business coach because you might need that. It is an investment and some
Mhm.
people don't understand the importance of an investment. Like if you're an entrepreneur, if you want to own a business, you're going to invest in things that you may not want to, but are for your benefit and for the future of your brand's benefit.
Yeah.
So you're going to be doing a lot of learning and unlearning and then learning and then unlearning.
And continuously stepping outside of your comfort zone. You said it perfectly. That I think it's just part
Hmm.
of the process. But no, I appreciate you sharing all that you shared, and I think I was going to ask you what advice you had, but you just laid out like
Yeah,
three different things about knowing your finances and making sure that you're putting money aside for things and investing in things that will help
yeah,
you not just short term but long term for your business. Those are
yeah,
definitely things that are scary, right? Because you one might not even know anything about taxes or not know anything about, a lawyer for your trademark, whatever it is that you're doing. And so you're almost like, well, I know I'm supposed to be doing this, but there's only so much you can look up online. You need to know when it's time to bring someone else in to
yep,
help with it. And sometimes that within itself can be scary. As a Latina, like growing up as first gen, I did everything for my parents. So it's almost like
yep,
sometimes it's difficult for me to try to ask for help because I know that I've been able to do so much
yep,
without anybody's help. So that within itself was like a journey of unpacking that and trying to figure out how to navigate that within my own business. So it's a journey within itself,
yeah.
both within your small business or entrepreneurial mindset, but then also your personal growth. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and you know what, Esperanza, also this is part of unlearning, breaking our generational cycles. Like as women, we are always kind of like the head honchos of the household or whatever it is, or helping our parents or doing this, but like really it's okay to ask for help. I learned that in my journey. Like I used to be, I could do it. I got, and then I was getting to a point of burnout. And I'm
Mhm.
like, this doesn't make sense. And I started to reach out. I hired the business coach. I hired the life coach. I was like, I can't. I heard the therapist, like, I can't do this alone. Like, we're not meant to do this alone. We're meant to do this in community, even if that means paying for a service. I tell people all the time, like, you go out on a weekend and you spend money. If you have to stay in for 2, 3 weekends, you have to want it bad enough.
Mm-hmm.
You have to want it bad enough. Like where it's like, I can't afford it. Yeah, of course you can't afford it because you're not taking yourself serious. Like
Yeah.
stay in then a couple weeks. Maybe every Saturday you need to stay in because that's when you spend the most money, right? Because I'm in the New York City area, so New York City area, like you're spending $200 just to go outside and breathe. And
Yeah.
so like if you're going outside to just breathe for $200 and a business coach is $400 for the month, 500, are you really that far off if you stay 2 Saturdays in?
Yeah.
No.
It's like where there's a will, there's a way. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it can happen. You just gotta be open to it and evaluate how to make it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
You have to evaluate how you want to make that happen. I always tell people it's like, I understand that people come from such different circumstances, but it's not your fault what happens to you, but it's your responsibility to change it. And so if you want to be the change in your own life, you really, really need to buckle down. You need to buckle down. Like you have to. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like, and if you don't, you're just going to be feeling the same, stagnant. You're just going to have the same feelings all over again. And that's the discomfort that you have to go through. The
yeah.
staying in, the changing your life, the not drinking every weekend, the whatever it is that you have to do to just like make it happen.
Yeah. No, everything is true. And I really hope people who are listening take the tidbits that feel like it resonates most with
Mm.
them in terms of what they need right now for themselves. Because that within itself can change as your journey evolves with as a, whether it's your side hustle you're starting or you just have the entrepreneurial spirit that at some point you want to create something. Just take what you need for where you are right now, and then the rest will slowly start falling into place. But I appreciate you, Nataly, so much. This was such a
Mm.
wonderful conversation, and I can't wait for everybody to connect with you. And I'm going to drop everything for Nataly's retreat, her how to connect with her experiences. But I mean, honestly, just you talking about your wellness experience in general, there's such passion behind it. There's so
Mm.
much that people can receive from that, and I think that you say you can't sell it, but you just within the way you're selling it. So just make sure you know that. But
Thank you. I appreciate that. I talk with passion.
exactly, good, as you should, because you love what you do. But any other things that you want to mention, whether it's upcoming, I mean, we're going to be releasing this in good timing so that people can still have time to reach out about the retreat and/or added some tidbits that might not even be released yet with Cartagena. So there's little tidbits we can all get, but anything else you'd like to share?
What else do I want to share? Well, Cartagena will be April 2025. So it is coming up soon-ish. So I just kind of want people, it's going to be a 5 to 6 day trip. It's going to be a little shorter just for the people that, can't stay as long. I want to be intentional about that as well. We're definitely going to be doing a lot of cultural like experiences out there. So I hope to see some of you there. I also have began a something that we call Juntas Cenamos, which is something really beautiful. It is a community dinner experience where we are tapping into our senses through food and through wellness experiences. So there should be one coming out in November and December. I'm going to really try to do these monthly. The first one that we did was really beautiful, and they will be in the privacy of like my cute, cozy apartment, which is something that I really would love to do so that people feel like close and connected, and it's at somebody's home and you're not like overly dressed, but you're just feeling good. So, and then for Portugal and for all these retreats, I just do want people to know that there always will be payment plans, always. I just want people to know that there is this availability because we want to make it as accessible as possible because that's really, really important for me to make it accessible to have people. I know people have lives. They can't just drop X amount of money on a retreat, but I love to create something that really gives people the space or the opportunity to gradually be able to pay something like this off. So just know that there are payment plans for every one of my retreats. There will always be payment plans. And I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. Portugal will be in September 2025. That will be 8 days. So I hope to see some or a lot of you there.
Yeah, no, I need to start looking at my 2025 budget. But no, you're amazing. Thank you for your time, your energy, sharing all that you shared, and yeah, I mean, maybe we'll have to do a part two once the retreat happens, just to give
Yes.
deets on how things have evolved for you. But
Yes, I would love that. Thank you so much for having me.